Hey, I want to say thanks to a couple people. I know Casey's on here. He hosted us this last week, and I know that Michael Tamer's on and Greg Salvato's on. So thank you again to the Aucera team for an awesome meeting. And Greg and Mike, if you guys have anything to throw in there while we're warming up, feel free to chime in right now.
It was an awesome event. Thanks to Aucera for hosting us down there. It was a great crowd. Great input from everybody on the panel and everybody that participated, Michael Tamer included. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I might just add that Aucera throws a great CCNG party. So, and they were very, very concerned and very respectful of David Hadabus's requirements for the meeting. So I think they did really well, and it was really well attended. There was great communication, and it was really cool. It was really great to see a live meeting. You should have more of them.
Yeah, I hear you, Michael. So Michael would like to volunteer to host us in DFW. Kind of what I'm hearing.
You know what? Don't ever mess with somebody that's got control of the microphone there. So I think I've learned my lesson. So,
okay. To Michael's point, though, we are plowing forward with a member request for meeting model, right? So if you're a member, and nearly everyone on here is, and you want to do a meeting, whether it's Baltimore, like Ali has talked about, or Denver, or a DFW, or the upcoming one, Jillian, maybe a good time to kind of share that information. The upcoming one in Cincinnati, we're all in. We are all in.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking.
Go for it.
So thank you to Aucera and everyone who talked for them and attended that meeting last week. It sounds like it was a wonderful meeting in Orlando. I've looked at some of the pictures already, and it looks like everyone just had a really great time. And to continue planning our regional networking events, we have another upcoming event on May 16th. This one will be in Cincinnati, Ohio, hosted with First Financial Bank and Matt Woody. So we're very excited for that. If you have any questions, please email me at jillian@ccng.com. I promise my email was there at one point. I don't know where it went. But I will also share. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I will also be sharing this PDF in the chat. So you are more than welcome to take that information and sign up to attend. And if you have any questions, please reach out as always. We're very excited for this upcoming event in May. And if you'd like to host one in your area, you can also email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well. But I think with that, it's time for us to get into our town hall for the day. If David, you want to do a welcome?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. You know the drill. While you're asking or engaging with anyone and everyone on the set today, please use your camera open if you can. It makes for a lot more enjoyable experience in the recorded version. To that end, I have Jillian swearing to me that we're actually recording this one. We got thrown off last town hall because people are starting to use an AI tool to record on their own desktops or whatever. And I think we saw the word "we're recording" and we assumed we were recording in Zoom, and we weren't. So lesson learned there, and apologies, we did not get that recorded last time. But all that said, we're going to have a great session today. There's a lot of information that's going to be shared. So I want people to feel free to pause us at any point. Scott Prater, I know that may throw you off your A game, but that's all part of it. It's, it's not quite dunking booth, but, we do our best to keep you on your toes. But you and I have known each other, Scott, for years. I know that at one point, I think you were with ClickFox. Do I have that right?
Oh, gosh, yes. 2009, 2010. Yes.
Yeah, so that probably would have been the first time I heard your name. And then, of course, we've crossed paths a number of other times throughout your career. So this is the first time you've had a chance to really talk with the group. And we appreciate you taking time, as well as the other folks that are joining us today from Bridgepoint. So thank you, Scott, for that.
Great. No, it's great. It's great to be here. I try to keep this engaging. What I'm going to do, just so you know, I'm trying to do roughly, we'll do 2 slides and we'll do a polling. Yep. So I'm going to talk about CX evolution. I'm getting the unstable. And so we're going to look at CX evolution from a customer perspective. We're going to talk about how the landscape has changed from a technology standpoint, delivering those CX capabilities. And then we'll get into some strategies really around how you deliver this. So one is best of breed versus single vendor. And then also today, both CCaaS, which is contact center as a service, as well as CPaaS, communication platform as a service. And lastly, we had a whole session on AI last month, and we'll talk a little bit about AI and how it's kind of disrupting and changing all this stuff. So with that, let's go to the next slide. There we go. All right, a little history lesson. So if you look at the evolution from a customer standpoint of customer experience, it all started with literally walking up and getting a line, be it a bank teller. I remember when I was a kid going to F&H green stamps with my mom. You would literally get in line, you would place an order, you'd come back, you'd get in line, get your order. Right around the late 1960s, 1970s, call centers came into being. They were very basic, but you could actually get service via phone. The next evolution really then became your DTMF or touch tone IVR. So really those were mainly to try to get you to the right location so you could talk to somebody. Then the internet came into being. Does anybody recognize who that is using the computer down there? Anyone?
Isn't it Al Gore?
No, that is Web Service Protocol. That is Mick Jagger.
I knew it.
Doing self-service right there.
You know, every time they look so much alike, those two.
So the internet brought self-service portals, and Amazon and e-commerce had chat and email was a way to get service, always siloed. And then I remember in the heyday of dial-up, I worked at AOL, and I remember, one of the big things that we went to push out were FAQs, right? Basic FAQ bots. You could ask a question, it would give you an answer. It really wasn't a bot. It was more about querying a knowledge base. Then we moved into asynchronous digital care, probably in the mid-2010s. So iMessaging or texting, and care moved into that area. At roughly the same time, maybe a little later, social media. So there's many companies and places now you can get care via Twitter. Great place to escalate something if you're not getting the answer you need. Usually you'll get a great response there. And then more recently, we've really moved into the AI bot world and AI-enabled capabilities. And who really knows what the next big thing is? I think we're on the AI wave now. It'll be interesting to see 5 years from now what the next wave is from a consumer perspective. So next slide, we're going to talk about how the technology enabled all this stuff. So I'm not old enough to remember this, but Rockwell invented the ACD in the 1960s, and that's essentially what allowed call centers to be built, for calls to be routed and measured. Things changed into the early 1980s. People may remember Geotel, as well as CTI, that allowed for enterprises that had multiple ACD and route calls in an intelligent way. In 1999, and everything today, technology, 1999 was the very first disruptive cloud solution. That's what it was. It's the largest cloud solution today, regardless of space. Salesforce.com. Everybody wondered, well, how's it ever going to displace any of the kings of the industry? And now here we are today. All CRMs are essentially cloud-based. Multi-channel came in. So a company called Live Chat kind of started the chat wave, and email right around 2002 is when Live Chat was launched. The first ever large-scale voice over IP, and we're doing everything over voice over IP here, really happened in 2004. And I know that because, as I mentioned, I was at AOL, and I was the first person dumb enough in the industry to try and put 4 large ACDs in a data center and attach 10,000 agents to them via a wide area network. Revolutionary at the time. I broke a lot of stuff, but that's obviously the model today. In the early 2000s, CCaaS offerings emerged. CCNG-Contact were the first two. And really it stayed focused on, Gartner actually began coverage of the space in, there's a unstable again. Gartner began coverage of CCaaS market space, which time there was a lot of M&A activity in the industry. That's when NICE bought CCNG-Contact. That's when Genesys bought Interactive Intelligence, all focused on cloud. And really, you can see the beginning of the premise world starting to decline. Gartner end coverage of it in 2018, basically saying it's reached its peak. It's nothing downhill from there. Everything is in November of 2022. OpenAI launched ChatGPT. So that's the underlying technologies that fit together against the previous slide. So now if we can hit the next question, the poll question, which is a fun question.
And we're going to have the poll
It
for
will
a
be
few
very
seconds. So
telling
everybody,
based on your
everybody
answer.
make sure to get your votes in.
Yeah, this is a you must play proposition. Hey, Jillian, can you read the poll question?
Oh, yes. The poll question says, who has ever worked with a Rockwell or Aspect ACD in the 70s or 80s? I'm going to pull it down in just a few seconds. So any stragglers, get your votes in.
I can name 3 people already on this town hall, starting with Mr. Tamer.
All right. You should see those results up right now where 23% of our guests said yes and 77% said no.
All right. So there's clearly 23% of the poll respondents are 55 or older, is what I'll say there. Most likely. I actually saw one at the early stage of my career. So it just kind of puts interesting perspective of where everybody's knowledge base is relative to the history of the contact center. All right, let's move on to the next one. So the technology landscape has really changed, more so in the last 5 years than it ever has around how these capabilities get delivered. So if you look at this slide, and it's from one of the big analyst firms, you'll recognize the interaction layer. That's all the stuff typically today, the voice, the IVR channel, email, all those different things that are now delivered often in a CCaaS solution, still developed point solutions, but they're often embedded into a CCaaS solution with all the different communications technologies that go with it. The information layer that exists, which is usually integrated to whatever the contact solution is, be that the CRM, ERP, whatever homegrown system, and then enabler solutions, which in today's world most often come or very, very tightly coupled with whatever you're using to provide your customer service. So your agent desktop, your omni-channel solution, your collaboration tools sometimes can be a UC platform or any kind of chat platform, your reporting, call recording, all that is generally integrated into something that you can buy today in a single solution or maybe from 2 vendors. What's really changed in the last few years is the value-added solutions and how you can get them and go to market, specifically in the AI, and we'll talk more about this later, but specifically in the AI space. So increasingly, now when companies try to figure out how they're going to deliver that customer experience, you really need to look into this value-added solution area and understand your internal use cases and really say, can I go with whatever my very specialized solution that can actually bring value to me, or in the case of companies that are on a premise ACD, can I bolt one of these things on to drive real value? So it's kind of like the framework of how this stuff fits together at the technology level today. Hit the next slide. So anybody that answered the Rockwell and Aspect question will remember the best of breed wave, which into roughly the mid 2010s, maybe early 2010s. Back then, when you got an individual solution, and as an example, you could have, like, remember one point in time, I had an Avaya ACD, and I had a Witness WFM platform, which actually became part of Verint later down the road in QA. I had a homegrown CRM and various other specific chat solution, specific email solution. Those were all, give you all the capabilities, all as point solutions and all as the best of things that were available at the time. And all of those market leading vendors were constantly the ones that were, building on that platform. If you bought their solution, whatever the next thing was in the space they were doing, you would get it. It enhanced the customer experience. So, I had capabilities to serve people in various channels, which is really what the best of breed drove around connecting all these various things. And then it did give you scalability and flexibility, just because these other additional point solutions, allowed you to buy the technology and scale as you needed. The drawbacks to it, though, is all this stuff had to be hooked up together. So anybody that's been in industry as long as me Remember when you, as an example, got your VI ACD and they were going to integrate nice to it, and you were told it's going to be $200,000 to connect them when you know it's been connected 100 times before, right? So all those different data standards, I'm unstable again. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Make things difficult. It makes complexity in operations. You got to have all these different platforms. People all have to be trained on how to do different things, and it creates all different kinds of different workflows across your business because they are all point solutions, best of breed. Generally, you had higher operational costs because all these market-leading solutions were the highest priced in their space. And then obviously it was an inconsistent user experience because you had a different platform for everything. Another one, a lot of times the IVR was different, another one for chat. So that while you provided a great flexibility, it gave an inconsistent user experience. And then the more recent wave, next slide, please. So the more recent wave is really single vendor or best of suite. So with the advent of CCaaS solutions, roughly in the mid 2010s, around 2015, before that, CCaaS solutions were generally more in the SMB and mid-market space. So CCaaS solutions gave the ability in enterprise space to actually put all these things together and consume it in one place. So it simplified the integration and management because all the things were within a single technology stack. So that reduced the complexity and made things be able to roll out much faster. It was a consistent user experience, not just for whoever the customers were, but also for actually the IT staff or whoever was managing the platform. Generally speaking, it would reduce costs because when you pull everything together, it's going to lower the total cost of ownership between reduction in licensing costs and often a reduction in administrative overhead. Finally, all the data could be in one place. So regardless of channel and omni-channel, data was available and customers could finally start to get, or enterprises, I should say, could finally get a start to handle to understand what is going on with their customers to make more effective decision-making. And since it was, there's plenty of companies out there that have surges and for holiday stuff, it made it very easy for them to go from 100 agents to 500 agents in a software-based model without having to buy all that stuff that they used to have in the past and just kind of let it sit on the bench. But it's got its drawbacks. So one is vendor lock-in. When you pick your vendor, you got to be very thoughtful in doing it. You got to not only look at what they're providing today, but you got to look at what their roadmap is, what their financial situation is, because when you lock in with them, you're going to become reliant on them for a whole lot of stuff, whereas before it might have been only a single piece. Also, since this is a common code base shared across every customer, it simplifies management, but it may not provide within the platform the level of customization that an enterprise may. Usually that can be solved. All these platforms have pre-integrated solutions that often can solve those things to make it very easy to plug in. But just know customers that have been on Avaya or Cisco, wherever, have written all kinds of, I'll call them crazy things. Some people call them interesting things. Some people call them necessary for their business. But the reality of it is you're probably not going to be able to do it the exact same way you did it before. Doesn't mean that the customer experience suffers. Doesn't mean that your enterprise suffers. Just know that you have to do it different. Most of these platforms are dependent on Amazon Web Services. So you do have an increase of disruption. If anybody that's on a CCaaS solution today that has had outages, more often than not, your vendor comes back and tells you it was AWS related. And then lastly, it is a one-size-fits-all approach. So very similar to the limited customization options, the integrated stack assumes a general set of needs, which can drive changes to your operational processes. And with that, let's hit the next poll question. And as we're going to kind of, in this poll question, we're going to vary between who out there considers themselves single vendor or best of suite, and who considers themselves hybrid.
Great. Get your votes in. We have 15-ish more seconds before we're going to pull that poll down and look at the results.
I'll hold the Jeopardy music this time.
All right. I still see some of you haven't answered it. Make sure you get those votes in. 3, 2, 1. All right. We're going to share this poll. And you should see those results right now.
Hey, are you spying on us to see how we're voting?
Hybrid. Kind of what I said. So if you don't mind, somebody who's best of breed, Can somebody who's best of breed just kind of talk about what you've got and why you're that way? I'm not sure who our best of breed people were or is. Nobody wants to volunteer?
Please unmute if you want to jump into the conversation. And if you don't feel comfortable or you're not able to unmute right now, you can also put your responses in the chat and we can look at those there.
Hey, this is Casey Koseka. Sorry, I couldn't unmute quick enough. I think if you're, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
You can hear Casey. Hi, Casey, by
Hey,
the way.
Scott, good to see you, man. Good presentation.
Good to
so
see
far.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, so at Sarah, formerly Dial America, where I'm at now, we use Genesys Cloud CX as our CCaaS system, but we do a lot with Call Miner to kind of supplement. You know, Genesys offers an entire suite, but we believe Call Miner is a little better at some of the things. Genesys is good at the CCaaS, and then we use for our performance management dashboard system and gamification, Touchpoint One's Acuity system. You know, Genesys has a gamification. It's just not as in-depth, robust, and easy to use as Acuity. And the dashboard system, you know, we use that kind of to aggregate all of the data, Genesys and our Dayforce and you know, all the disparate systems. We use Touchpoint One to aggregate all that stuff and display the performance reporting through Acuity. So we kind of, you know, that's kind of a best in breed, if I'm understanding it correctly, right? Instead of using a Genesys for everything, although they, you know.
You got that right, Casey, and I'd be disappointed if you weren't using Touchpoint One for everything you mentioned. That would be
right.
We'd have to talk about that. It is absolutely, and anybody that works with BPOs, that's really the most common model you see in BPOs, right? BPOs have invested in all these different point solutions. They know how to maintain them. More importantly, they've got the people that can actually do the programming, the integration, and all that stuff. The best of breed type of solution. Hybrid, you know, arguably you could say what Casey said is best of breed, and that you are using Genesys for the omni-channel routing and all of the care type functions. But for the analytics and for the dashboarding and all those things, you're using other solutions. So you could argue either way around whether that's best of breed or hybrid. What about single vendor? Because anybody single vendor, in my mind, would have to be somebody that's on a CCaaS platform and using all of Genesys or using all of NICE or using all of Five9. Anybody out there want to speak to single vendor?
And Scott, before the group answers that, you know, because you've operated and consulted more at the enterprise level, and I have at the SMB level, and so a lot of my relationships at CCNG, Corey and her team, has been that really 50 agent to 200 agent, you know, enterprise, right? And so that's the perspective you and I both bring. Is I see, Scott, at the lower level, just to give people just some sentiments here, is that we typically do single vendor and not best of breed. So we're not having a lot of the bolt-ons of an AI partner or a ChatGPT or performance management partner. We typically would procure, or the client would select, just for simplicity, the best of what they've seen, whether it's through proof of concepts and demos. And I typically see that at the lower level or small SMB, just because of, I think, vendor management, overall simplicity, and then change management of the solution. So they'll buy a Genesys, a Five9, a Nextiva, a Talkdesk, whomever, a NICE, right, for their platform in totality. And that could be workforce intelligence, workforce management, right? It could be Omni, it could be SMS and ICD. That's what my experience is. I typically don't see smaller businesses buying from best of suite. Right? I see it differently. I don't know what your perspective is on that. I'd like to hear what the group has to say.
So anybody wants to speak to that, because just the point was, and I think in the SMB space, clearly, and move up to mid-market, it's easier to consume best of suite or the whole thing, right? So I don't know what size contact center groups we have here, but interesting to say in that large enterprise space, anybody, what do you guys look like?
That's been my experience working with organizations of that size also.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because the entry-level market, everyone knows the Fives, the Genesys, the NICEs, maybe the Nextiva, Dialpads. They don't know maybe some of these smaller niche suppliers, and maybe it's too complex for them to manage, Scott? Or do you think it's more around cost containment? What is the perception around that? Because you're right, if we really do a true long-term consultative approach to a smaller contact center environment, one of those bigger players may not be the best all-around fit, but I think because it's just easy and it's packaged, they go that way.
So, hey, this is Michael Tamer. We have a lot of really tiny clients, and we'd definitely be an add-on. The really small, like 15 agents, some 25, 35 agents. So I don't think it's an across-the-board component. I mean, especially just as an example, workforce management. I mean, most clients have a add-on workforce management. So for their basic platform, I can see that, but don't. There are a lot of not low end. There are a lot of inexpensive solutions on the low end that can do a number of things for some of these smaller centers where they're not necessarily stuck with just a singular option. Recognize, of course, it's obviously easier, but with integration and with some of the changes that have occurred in the marketplace, some of these attachments actually attach easier than some of the clients that have, or some of the vendors that have just a complete solution. So just my 2 cents.
Great point, Michael. And you actually segued into to the next slide, believe it or not. So you gave a lead in, even though you didn't see it. So we'll move on to the next one, and I'll remake one of Michael's points as we move on to the next slide. So CCaaS has emerged as the leading model, as validated by Gartner and some of the things that I said early. And there's really, 2 other models still available. The CPaaS, so that's platform as a service, or premise, right? So let's talk about CCaaS, since that is the dominant model. The cost efficiency, you pay what you go on a subscription basis, so you no longer have to do all these big upfront capital expenditure planning for anybody that's ever involved in the budget process. It's really easy and fast to deploy. Anybody that had to pivot to a CCaaS solution during COVID found that out, that you were able to launch call center often within 15, 30 days that you never thought could be done. All the maintenance and upgrades are included in the platform. So as the platform gets new stuff, you automatically get it with no outages, unlike the previous world. Ability is a huge thing. All the platforms are really designed to have the agents hanging off an internet connection somewhere. So it makes the telephony easier on the agent side. And then what Michael was talking about is integration capabilities. So one, they all have modern APIs to them, so make it very easy to integrate something. If you have something that isn't already standardly integrated, it's relatively easy to do it. But more importantly, all of these platforms have ecosystems, anywhere from 100 to 150 different technologies that you can bolt onto them very easily, pre-integrated. You literally, oftentimes it takes an hour to configure what you want it to talk back and forth in, and then you're off and running with them. So it makes it very easy to get those other things. A good example oftentimes is a CCaaS platform. While it has chat, it may not have co-browsing chat. So you would need your business cases. You need co-browsing to help somebody to complete a shopping cart experience or whatever. And you can very easily get that co-browsing solution, plug it right in, and makes it very easy. For reliability and security, you no longer have to worry about that in the enterprise yourself, because it's totally managed by the provider, and they have every certification on demand and a huge spend around maintaining all those things. And then ultimately, they do have their omni-channel routing. They do have, like Casey was mentioning, some of the platforms have the analytics already built in, which makes it very easy for the SMB mid-market kind of customers to get the kind of data analytics they didn't have. The platforms now are getting bots and agent assist and auto QA capabilities added to them to enhance the customer experience. But the important thing to take away from me is this: if you're migrating from any legacy premise contact center platform, CCaaS is really the right way to go for the majority of customers in all market segments, because you're literally buying something that all you have to do is configure. We'll talk about anybody's using that capability here on the call today. Okay, so next slide, if you will. So platform as a service, that's the Amazon Connects, Twilios of the world. There's quite a few of them out there now that have the ability, that are essentially toolkits. Initially, those platforms were providing targeted technology capabilities to augment enterprise. So I can't tell you the number of customers I ran across that had you name the ACD device, Cisco, whatever premise, and we're using Twilio as an example to handle their SMS messaging, voice and video calling, push notifications is another thing. Uber originally was one of Twilio's biggest customer, all just around all that push stuff they would do in the Uber via Twilio. Increase to, they have a complete, if you will, inside of them. I liken it to turning CCaaS to CPaaS. I remember in 1977, I went to the Star Wars movie, the TIE Fighter, Darth Vader did. And I came home and I took my Legos and I made a TIE Fighter. I knew it was a TIE Fighter. My parents didn't know what it was when I brought it up to them because I built it myself. Now today, my grandkids, you know it's a TIE Fighter because they follow the instructions, they put it together within an hour, they have a thing. That's the comparison of CCaaS to CPaaS, really. So good CPaaS use cases, if you're super highly customized and you have, and I think most importantly in the companies you find that have success with it, is they're already deeply embedded in Amazon Web Services, in Google, into Azure. They have massive development teams that are already trained. So they've got the capabilities in-house to actually build it and maintain it. Bad use cases is if you're, and I've seen plenty of small call centers go off and try and build a call center with Amazon Web Services because they had one guy or girl that was trained and that person built something. And the business said, this is great, it routes contacts, but I can't measure anything. I don't have reporting. And that person left and then they're stranded, right? There's a higher initial time investment to build all that stuff because you are integrating all the different pieces, especially in a large complex build. And then cost uncertainty. So we as a company often help companies try to figure out where they're going from a technology platform thing. And the hardest thing to do is to model the costs in the CPaaS space because everything's transactional. And when you talk to a customer about how many minutes or how many transactions do you have in this different things, a lot of times the data isn't there to accurately model it. And even when the data is there, it doesn't line up to the CPaaS model. So oftentimes companies are in for a bit of a surprise and what the operational costs are once they move. So the net of it is if you're significant qualified resources, and you need to, and you can build and maintain that platform, by all means, CPaaS is good. If you just need some kind of targeted capability, or notification engine, CPaaS is a great thing to add on to your CCaaS platform to handle those specific use cases. And then lastly, we'll tie one more slide and then we'll go to the last polling questions. There we go. So AI technology is really driving things back to, and this is my personal opinion, more back to a best of breed kind of model. So AI technology, I was talking to a financial guy recently. They said that there were 60 invested in AI technologies focused in the customer care space. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of innovation, right? Doing things at a pace, at a very focused way that the big players are, they've got lots of platform stuff they have to deal with to invest their development resources and costs on, right? So the CCaaS providers are having to react to that. So they're offering their own natural language processing and machine learning speech chatbot capabilities. And they're all at various maturity levels. Some of them have acquired things. As an example, Five9 acquired Inference a few years ago, so they have their own IVA. Other ones have a partner model. A lot of them are trying to do both. They build their own and they try to be Switzerland. In other words, they'll work with anybody, right? The predictive routing, that's something that actually really only the CCaaS platform can do with that AI technology. So that's something where they have a differentiation that a lot of the bolt-on solutions really can't do. I think analytics, and I remember the talking about AI use cases, I think auto QA and analytics was talk about. That is like the easy button around ROI in a call center, and you can actually, as long as you got call recordings and metadata. So obviously the CCaaS providers are kind of late to that game. and they've only more recently come out with their own auto QA and auto call summary solutions, where a lot of these point providers have had it out for 2 years or more. And then Agent Assist. So Agent Assist, both of CCaaS providers as well as companies like Core AI, there's Agent Assist platform, and in addition to the hyperscalers, Google and Amazon have their own as well. And really, it's interesting because it's changed the battleground of knowledge management, because knowledge is required to make those things work. And it used to be knowledge was kind of its own thing off to the side, and more now you see the CCaaS providers actively, and some of them do have it now, knowledge management platforms built into their system to kind of give them an advantage on how to get to that knowledge and leverage it from an AI perspective. On the premise provider side, I mean, a lot of them are trying to pivot into the cloud world. Generally speaking, they perform partnerships to remain competitive here. So, Avaya's example has a partnership with Google on how they deliver a lot of this stuff. But what's interesting, and this is kind of a chicken and the egg thing, there's a lot of companies out there that are still sitting on premise. One of the things, and they're looking to move to a modern CCaaS solution. One of the things that they need to look at is, what do I do first? Do I move to CCaaS, or do I put AI on top of my premise and then move to CCaaS later? And that's a great discussion there, because you basically have to understand certain CCaaS providers and certain AI providers work together natively, and some of them don't. But the important thing is generally speaking, on a premise system, there's incremental costs on infrastructure to actually put a voice stream to whatever the AI solution is. So depending on the size, it can be $100,000, $200,000 additional one-time costs just to create the connectivity to make it work that doesn't exist in the CCaaS world. Hybrid model is something that you hear a thing is upgrade without disruption, right? They're offering hybrid models, a little bit of premise, a little bit of cloud, layer your AI into it. Everybody's got a little different definition of hybrid, but that's essentially where they're going. But the one thing that's challenging, if you ever do, or if you have already bolted an AI solution, specifically a customer-facing AI solution, so a self-service type of solution onto a platform, the reporting can be somewhat challenging because the legacy reporting platforms within a premise platform will require you to take your data from your AI platform and send it off to some third-party system and marry the data up. So the value relative to understanding the customer journey can be somewhat limited unless you have a fairly sophisticated IT organization to build that. So the net of it is, companies that are still on-premise ACD technology really need to think about the best path forward when looking to use specifically a real-time AI technology, right? Do I bolt it on, pick that AI technology at the same time as I'm going? Just because if you do go off and pick your AI technology, it may limit you on your CCaaS technology down the road, just because I would imagine that will become less of a problem. But today, there's very fine lines of who works with who. All right, and next polling.
I'm going to bring the slides down for our next two polls and to have some group discussion before we have to wrap up. So everyone, please turn your camera on as we launch this next poll. All right, so this poll says, what is the premise of your contact center today?
Maybe it's not premise. If I wrote that question that way, that's my bad. You should say, what is the infrastructure? CCaaS or CPaaS? And there may be some people premise here. So if you premise, just feel free to raise your hand and shout up. I made an assumption that most people have probably migrated in some way, shape, or form, at least partially, to a cloud-based solution.
We're going to leave it up for just a few more seconds. A lot of people still need to get their answers in. Don't be shy. It's all anonymous. All right.
It's because they're all premise people, and I left premise out of the poll. That's my bad.
All right, going to give it 2 more seconds, and you should see those results now, where 90% of the people said CCaaS, and then 10% said CCaaS.
That's about what I would have expected. I'm just curious, the CPaaS use case, is it highly complex, or is it, a lot of times companies that are very IT led want to build it themselves?
Or Scott, would you just say it's not understood?
They win the battle, and that's the way it goes.
Or Scott, would you
I'm sorry,
you
what?
differ that maybe CPaaS is misunderstood? And a lot of CCaaS providers provide CPaaS solutions within their solution. What are your thoughts there?
Yes and no. That where you really get into that is what I'll call the providers that provide both a UC platform and a CCaaS platform. That's more often like Vonage as an example. Vonage has its own CCaaS platform, UC platform, and CPaaS platform. I'm more interested in if there's a Twilio or an Amazon Connect customer out there. Just really curious what your use case is. Or any other CPaaS platform for that matter. There's a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, I mean, 8x8 rolled one out. So there are other ones out there.
So our CPaaS person chooses to remain silent.
And if the answer is I don't know, or there's something offline, we can talk about it, but very curious.
For time's sake, while that CPaaS person comes up with the courage to come forward, I'm gonna launch our 4th poll.
One last poll, and this one is really, I think, will drive
It's a
the
2-question
most
poll, so
discussion because obviously, there we go. So while you're answering that, I read something today on LinkedIn. I remember a year ago, there was all this big push from the C-suite on CX leaders to go off and get some AI. We need some AI. We got to have some AI. And you as CX leaders, like, what does that mean? How does that all fit in? How do I do it? And now I saw something they said 91% of C-level officers said they have an AI strategy in their company. So we went in 1 year from get some AI to now there is a defined AI strategy and a C-suite poll.
gonna bring that poll down and share it with you all now.
I was just going to throw out there while you're bringing that poll up for for us at Service Titan where I'm at, you didn't have the option on here, but to your point, Scott, we built several AI solutions in-house. So instead of going third party, we've been able to customize and develop some things specifically for both our platform and my customer facing environment in-house.
Did you use one of the hyperscalers to do it? I mean, Google, Amazon, whatever was underlying what you were using?
A little bit. There's a combination of things in there, but we've also brought some of the talent in-house and built things out via ChatGPT and a few other things custom to our environment.
Yeah. No, it's the ChatGPT thing is interesting. I see less companies trying to tackle the language model. I see a lot of companies looking to tackle the analytics angle of AI. A lot of times using the hyperscaler stuff. It's more that I'll call it the aggressive or leading edge companies that are willing to unleash a ChatGPT large language model on their customers because people have the fear around the guardrails, right? Usually we do it internally first and then we'll go out there and of course, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, that's the pitch that the CCaaS, you say, you go out and talk to these other things and you're just going to, unleash bad things on your customers.
Yeah, look, we've done both. So I was one of those people prior to that was more focused on using the old Facebook model of let your agents experience the pain first, and then once they go through the pain and work through the kinks, then you can turn it on towards the customer. But we've built some good guardrails that watch things very carefully. That are leveraged through our actual platform itself. It's been a fun experience, and I will tell you, the company I'm at, I've got more energy and resources from our R&D team looking at support than I ever have before, and it's been a lot of fun. So we've got customer facing, but also internal, doing a lot of the things that you're talking about, including our own QA ChatGPT that's helping us automate a lot of our quality processes.
Yeah. And then on the customer facing side, Chris, are you doing like on a use case by use case basis? Here's the use case. We're going to roll it out. We're going to measure it. We're going to tweak it. We're going to refine it.
Yeah.
And
so
then move on. Or are you going parallel?
So it's a little bit, it's parallel. So what we did start out with was a small test to certain types of clients. And we only made it available because we do still today have clients that can contact us directly, but we're slowly moving all of our customers to go through the application support process, or the tool that's built into our SaaS solution that we provide our customers. So when they get help, instead of going to a community or going somewhere else, they now just go and get support right from the platform itself. But we have been very careful about pilot, who gets to use it and who doesn't. We have some very premium customers that we white glove already that we just route to our white glove service. But we've seen some pretty good deflection rates using this new ChatGPT, and it's helpful. But it helps that internally we've got an entire department dedicated to ongoing automated knowledge creation. So instead of relying just on the agents to create articles off of every case using KCS, we are now using AI to go through and see what are the most requested information through cases, and then we're building knowledge content in-house using, again, AI solutions to put all that out. It's been really fun to watch. We haven't had a lot of friction. We have been careful with how we rolled it out to our customers, though, because it can rub people the wrong way if you throw out a bunch of bad answers.
Chris, I just noticed Service Titan. So I guess remind me when I had my HVAC guy here a couple weeks ago, and I saw the Service Titan on the screen when he was doing my thing. So is some of that stuff facing the frontline people, or is it more facing the back office people within the service providers?
Mostly, 90% of the time it's back office, but it depends on the size of the shop. If it's a smaller shop, the guy that's installing your AC unit is also the guy that's doing the back office stuff. And I shouldn't say guy, I should say guy or gal, because we have completely female owned and ran organizations. So it depends, but yes, depends on the size of the customer. We have some that can reach out directly to us right through the mobile app and but most companies will send issues through their back office teams that are doing like dispatch and call center stuff.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Anybody want that's using their CCaaS provider? I'd love to talk to somebody, just kind of share what you're doing with your CCaaS provider in AI space. I feel like this is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I'm at the front of the classroom, and I'm going, Bueller. Anybody want to help me here?
Don't be shy, everybody. Please, this is a welcomed environment for discussion. So we encourage you to speak up in the last few minutes.
I really don't bite. I promise.
Yeah, guys, and if you haven't, that's fine. If it's more, hey, I want to learn more, or is my CCaaS provider or my UCaaS provider the right provider to be buying an AI solution from, is also a question, right? So that's.
Yeah. Because I mean, Chris's example was your classic of how the best of breed is working today. You're finding a very targeted solution. You're either building it or buying it, and you're plugging it into your overall infrastructure. I'm more curious to hear from somebody that's like, I leverage my Genesis, my NICE, my 5.9, whoever it may be, and this is what they're doing for me. And I'm guessing it's probably an IVA use case, probably some kind of a voice bot or digital bot.
Yeah, hey, it's Michelle. I can talk about a client where and I think this is also probably a use case that's worth contemplating. They have done many acquisitions of other companies. So this is a legal services firm, and they purchased a lot of other legal services platforms, software platforms, and aggregated them together. And one of the larger decisions that they had to make was, we've got half of the house was Zendesk and the other half of the house was Intercom. And they essentially made a somewhat arbitrary decision before we got there to move everything over to Intercom. And it was really because Intercom's chat capabilities and AI chatbot were much more compelling to them than what came with Zendesk. And so that to me is an interesting use case when you start thinking about organizations that are really growing through acquisition versus growing organically, and how to contemplate the platforms that will ultimately support when you start to drive some of those business efficiencies that will support the entire kind of new business and new infrastructure.
Got it. Anyone else with a use case?
If not, I had a question. I know we're like at the last 5 minutes, but what I'm coming across is I have a good number of clients that are they're installing, let's say, Gong for their acquisition funnel, and they're using that as their platform for, and I don't know exactly what, quite honestly, because I'm not as involved in it, but for more than anything, kind of capturing information about their outbound and inbound sales efforts. And they might be using Gong as well for their chat platforms. And then they're using a totally different platform for the service side of the house. And excuse me, I was curious as to whether anyone else is having similar experiences in kind of this hyper, I'm considering it to be kind of hyper specialized platform implementation, the challenges that exist therein, and how to potentially have some conversations to think about aggregating that. And does it make sense to aggregate it? Like, are the capabilities that we have on the service side of the house good enough, broad enough, deep enough to go onto the sales side of the house, or the other way around?
So Michelle, I'm more in the outbound world, right? So you're doing outbound to acquire customers actually in the solar industry, and they had kind of done a best of breed solution on the outbound for acquisition, but then we're using Salesforce Service Cloud on the servicing, which, you know, played out really well as independent businesses, but created a lot of integration points and things between the two. For once you took something and sold it, and then turned that from an opportunity into actually a customer. And down the road, eventually they wind up just settling totally on Salesforce for everything.
Got it. Thanks. That's helpful.
And just with our last few minutes, I want to give a big thank you to the Bridgepoint team for what they were able to share today. I think this was a great discussion, and I want everyone to know to please reach out to them if you have any questions. I'm sure that's okay. We'll keep the discussion going for the last few seconds, but I do want to just share a quick CCNG announcement before people start to log off. And that is that CCNG will have a new website launching in our first week of May. We are very excited and have been working very hard over the last 3 and 4 months to make a really beautiful, easy to use and easy to navigate website for you all to find information related to CCNG. So be sure to look out for an email related to that. And once again, huge thank you to Bridgepoint for taking the time to give this wonderful presentation, and everyone for attending. For the last few minutes, I'm going to drop the slides if anybody has any last questions and points.
I'd like to know why Casey's camera's not on. I was looking forward to seeing that pretty face. For all of you that we met last week in Orlando, thanks for having Scott, me, and Eric. We met a lot of people. It was really insightful, and we learned a lot. So, Greg, great talking to you. Learned a lot about your company and your organization. So I know we need to collaborate. But thanks for having us, and thank you for having us part of this community. We look forward to adding some value and learning from you guys.
Yeah, and
Thanks for coming.
Me, really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I just want to add one little tidbit as we're ending. I've been on many calls in the last 7-8 years with Miguel Ramos, and I have never seen all without talking. So I just want to know how impressed I am that, Miguel, you're capable of actually doing that.
If I was not in the car on my way to the Keys, I would be talking more, but nice job, Scott.
Good seeing you, my friend. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good information.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys next month.
Bye.